Welcome back, everyone, to the Just Sayin College Football Sports Podcast here. I'm Sutton, got my counterpart on the other side, Jake there, and we're going to be breaking down a lot of games from this upcoming Week 11 week. Really looking forward to watching some college football this weekend. So I think we should get straight into it, Jake. Obviously, we're going to do the segment tonight. Got some best bets for you. This show won't be as long. We're only going to talk about 3 topics, so we'll get you in and get you out real quick. But there's not to say about any of that. There are some great games this weekend. Looking forward to watching them. And it all starts in Athens, Georgia. The number 9 Ole Miss Rebels coming in to take on the number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia currently a 10.5-point favorite at home.
Points.
Obviously, one of our co-hosts is a Georgia fan, goes to the University of Georgia. So he's an expert on the Dogs. Got the helmet for you right there. So take it away, Jake. I want to hear how you think this game's going to go, maybe some key factors, and then, does Georgia cover the spread? Does Ole Miss cover the spread? Does Ole Miss win outright? Obviously, we know you're not going to pick that, but go ahead and give us what you think is going to happen this weekend in Athens.
Yeah, yes, sir. Firstly, go Dogs. Secondly, I'm going to just throw it off with my prediction because it's no surprise. I think Georgia's going to win. And I want to be biased, but 10.5 points is a lot of points, especially when we're just in survival mode. Kirby obviously does not care about the spread. He doesn't care if we lose to it by 14 or beat it by 35. He does not care. So he just wants to win against Ole Miss because he knows Ole Miss is a tough team. And I think this is a 1-possession game, potentially like a 10-point game, but I don't think it's anything more than that. But I do think this is a game that we control the whole time. And I want to talk about the atmosphere of the Missouri-Georgia game. I thought it was loud, but obviously you can probably speak to it as well. Being in the student section, you kind of, it's not exactly what it seems like in the whole stadium. And so the student section, no matter where you are, it's pretty much always rocking. So I thought it was loud. And then getting on Twitter after the game, apparently it wasn't. The crowd wasn't that much of a factor. They did have a few false starts, had to call some timeouts, had some bad snaps. But I don't know if that was just on Missouri or, we were just loud in that moment. But I think the crowd's really going to show up for this game. Everybody, you probably have even heard it. They're hinting black jerseys. Probably not going to do it, but I think they should. That's just going to be another thing to get them riled up. But getting into the game, I think this is going to be a battle, obviously, of Ole Miss offense versus Georgia defense. I think we're going to have our way with them on offense. This is a decent Ole Miss defense. I think we didn't give them enough credit earlier in the year, but they are a really bad third down defense. And so this game is – go ahead.
Oh, and I just wanted to point out something real quick that I've kind of been crapping on the Ole Miss defense, but I didn't really realize this, and this is just to add to your point. Georgia or Ole Miss's pass rush is actually a lot better than expected.
Oh, their pass rush is good.
Yeah, their pass rush is like number 4 in the country, and I didn't realize that because it wasn't a huge factor against Alabama, and I think it might be even less of a factor against Georgia because Georgia's O-line is really good. But I want to know kind of your take on, and sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to know your take on how you thought the O-line would handle the pass rush that Ole Miss has.
Yeah, so they're 7th in sacks in the nation. Going to be the best pass rush that we go up against probably this year. Maybe Alabama might be a little bit better, but just by stats, Ole Miss is going to be the best. I think it's going to be great. Our team's been really good at not giving up sacks. Last game, a bit of a discrepancy. We gave up 3. But a lot of them, I think 2 of them were 1-yard losses. The other one was like a 2-yard loss. So, it's as long as it's not a 7 or 8 yard sack that kills you and makes it 2nd and 18, 3rd and 18. I think those are okay. So we just need to avoid those. But Amari Mims, our starting right tackle, who's returning from tightrope surgery, don't know if he'll be starting. He's definitely ready to go. He'll definitely get playing time. I just don't know if he's going to start. So we're really going to need him this game at some point. I can feel it. But Xavier Truss is a 6-year senior starting there at right tackle. He started the season at left guard before Mims got hurt. And then Dylan Fairchild has replaced him. He hasn't allowed a single pressure, and he's played, I think, 200 pass rushing snaps. So he's been really impressive there. So I think that interior is going to be good. I think right tackle is going to be really good. It's just going to be Ernest Green out there on an island at left tackle. He might give up 1, but I think he's going to play well as well. But like I said, I think this is a Ole Miss offense versus Georgia defense. And I think it's going to be won and lost on third down. And so what I've been hearing, what I've seen, And what I know is that Georgia's third down defense and offense is top 5 to 6 in the country. And Ole Miss third down offense and defense is bottom like 80, bottom 90. So, as long as we can get him off the field, I'm not going to be too worried about it. But Jackson Dart, he's a game player. He can make some plays. Going to be tough to bring down as long as we don't let him leave the pocket. I think playing Brady Cook this past week, I think that sets us up well because we know what to expect. We know how to guard it. And Quinshon Judkins, he's no joke. He's going to get his yards, but I don't think he's going to run all over us. I think it's kind of going to be what it was against Alabama where, he can make some plays, break some tackles, but he's not going to break any big ones. But Brock Bowers might be suited up for this game. Do I think he gets any playing time? No, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does. Apparently, he's already hit 20 miles per hour in practice, which is just insane because I think it's been 24 days since he got his surgery. So just insane. He's a freak of nature. But Carson Beck, he's going to have to show up and show out for this game. I know you said it on the last show. He hasn't really had a bad game. He's had some mediocre games, but he's looked like a veteran out there. And he's a really good quarterback, makes great decisions. If he can avoid that in this game, if he can just play good enough, we'll get the win and we'll get out of there. And then I think Trey Harris, I don't think he's going to be a problem. He's really good. He's a great athlete, great receiver. But, I mean, we got some lockdown corners over there, especially Kamari Laster. He's been playing great as of late. So I think he's going to be matched up on him a lot. And, Kamari's going to have him on straps. And so my final prediction for this game, I'm going to say it's going to be 35-27 Georgia.
So you've got Ole Miss covering.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I actually have Georgia winning, Ole Miss covering as well. I think, and don't get me wrong, I think Missouri's offense is really good. I actually think Missouri's offense is better than Ole Miss's offense just because of the playmakers they have. The Ole Miss O-line hasn't been great this year in the run game, but they have started to get better. And I do like Quinshon Judkins a little bit better than I like Cody Schrader. And I think Judkins presents some more problems than Schrader does. And Schrader had a lot of success against Georgia. So I think even though they had Schrader to prepare and they've kind of seen exactly how Ole Miss is going to attack them, I still think Quinshon Judkins has some success in this game running the football. I think that's kind of expected too. He's not going to be crazy in this game. I don't think he's going to score, 3 touchdowns like he did last week against Texas A&M. But I do think he has an impact and scores at least a touchdown in this game. And what happened to Georgia when they went to play at Auburn? Granted, they'll be playing at home in this game. But Peyton Thorne was able to really get on the outside, and he is not known to be a running quarterback. Brady Cook is a better runner than most people expect him to be, but he's more of a passer than he is anything much of a runner. Jackson Dart is a do-it-all quarterback. He can run. Alabama fans know he can. He kind of tore us up when he played us. If Jackson Dart can find holes in the pocket and step up and take them and run and get first downs and extend drives and consistency, doing things like that, maybe getting outside kind of like Peyton Thorne did. I mean, Peyton Thorne broke a 70-yard run against Georgia. That's going to be tough for Georgia to stop. We've kind of seen that as the Achilles heel of the just Georgia defense all season is mobility in the pocket at quarterback. And that kind of, as an Alabama fan, that kind of goes back to when Kirby Smart was at Alabama. When he was the defensive coordinator at Alabama from 2008 to 2015, we struggled at containing quarterbacks that ran well. I think of Cam Newton. I think of Johnny Manziel. I think of Tim Tebow. I think of Nick Marshall. I mean, there's just so many guys that we struggled to contain that were really good runners. And for that reason, they ended up either beating us or giving us a tough time. And I think that there's a quarterback down the road, whether that's Jackson Dart or not, that might be able to exploit this matchup against Georgia. With that being said, Georgia is very sound in every other place. They faced a better receiving trio last week with Missouri than Ole Miss is going to bring, even though I think very highly of Trey Harris. I think Trey Harris is about as good as they come in the SEC. I think Luther Burton's a little bit better, but he may have some good catches in this game. And I think Lane Kiffin's going to find ways to get him involved early, a little more than Missouri involved Luther Burton. I mean, like I said, that was
to get him involved.
That was just criminal that he only had 3 catches in that game. So
no. He had a lot of targets.
I mean, I don't know exactly how many. How many is a lot? So
I think he had 7.
I mean, So he caught half of his targets. Well, if Kamari Lassiter can do what he did last week, I mean, we'll see. But Trey Harris, great performance last week. Maybe he continues that on in this game. Obviously, I talked about how much I like Judkins, and I think Jackson Dart, if Ole Miss was to pull the upset, if they are to pull the upset, Jackson Dart's going to have the best game of his career passing and definitely rushing. It's a tall task to go in between the hedges and win. Obviously, as an Alabama fan, I've seen us do it before a couple times. And I know it takes a lot, especially if they're going to be a blackout. So we know the Georgia fan base is going to get up for this game, especially the students. And you're exactly right. That's where the game's going to be won. But I am interested to see what Pete Golding does, how he tries to attack the Georgia offense from the defensive standpoint. They've just been getting rocked in the passing game all year, and Georgia, that's where they're going to be. That's where they're going to try to beat you. It's no secret that's where what's his face, Bobo wants to attack. Yeah, I keep forgetting that he's there, which is just unreal. But yeah, Bobo's going to want to attack. Bobo's going to want to attack in the passing game. And Carson Beck has been, I've heard several analysis say it this year, of all the new quarterbacks to start their first year, he's been the best, the most consistent. So he's got a lot of talent around him, even though Brock may not play. I mean, with Delp and with McConkey and Rosemary Jack Saint, Ra Thomas, Dominic Levy. I mean, you can go on and on with some of these guys. I mean, just great talent around him. And then got a good couple running backs in the room with Milton and Edwards. And I don't expect them to have the biggest games because I expect Carson Beck to throw for over 300 in this game with 2 or 3 touchdowns. So I'm going to say Georgia is going to win this game. I'm going to go 38-34 Georgia. Close game, kind of comes down to the end, but like we've talked about all year, it's kind of been a theme with our show. Good teams win in the very end of the game. They find ways to win. And at home, I expect nothing less from Georgia. So before we talk about Alabama, are you good with that being the end of the Georgia talk for this segment?
Yeah, I wanted to just add one more thing.
Okay. Yeah.
I think Lane Kiffin's decision-making is going to play an impact in this game somewhere.
Very much.
Because it mostly does. I get the analytics tell you to go for it on 4th down, and I know that works against the LSU defense. I don't know, probably A&M's defense, it's good, but it's not what it's been. But I don't think they look at analytics when they're I think they look at their analytics too much when they're facing teams like Alabama and Georgia, where it's going to be 4th and 4. It's going to tell you to go for it. You're going to be on the 50-yard line, going to be down by 3, and you're not going to get it. And then we're going to go down and score a touchdown, and it's going to make it 10. I think that's going to happen somewhere along the line. Because I mean, Lane Kiffin, good coach, but he is hyper aggressive, and I think he's going to make that mistake at one point. And hey, it might turn out right for him. They might, it might work and they win. But I think the opposite. I think he's going to try to, and it's not going to work. I just think Lane Kiffin being that aggressive, it's going to rear its ugly head in this game somewhere.
Well, speaking from experience, Ole Miss was 0 for 2 on 4th downs at Alabama this year. Maybe they took what they learned from there and will somehow figure it out in this game. And because I think both of them actually were 4th and 1. I think they were 4th and 1, and they went 0 for 2 in that game.
I will say that's what I thought, because I was giving my take to my roommates, and I went and looked at it. They were 3 for 4 on 4th down.
Oh, I'm thinking of Tennessee. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Tennessee. Tennessee was 0 of 2. So, I mean.
I think
he's had if it's short yardage, I think if it's anywhere between 3 yards or less and he decides to go for it, I don't hate that because he knows his team more. And obviously he's one of the most brilliant offensive minds in college football. So he's probably you've got to think he's got 3 or 4 plays on his play call sheet that are, as he would say, 90%ers or more, where, you get a guy open in the flat, or you have a quarterback misdirection run or option play. Lane Kiffin's got stuff that up his sleeve that he's been preparing for games like Alabama and Georgia since the summer. I mean, since he saw that schedule, he knew that he was going to have some stuff pulled up his sleeve. He's a trick play master. I mean, he really knows what he's doing. Obviously, I missed that about offensive coordinating at Alabama. So, I trust Lane to do what's right in situations like that. And obviously, like I said, he knows his team better than both of us do. No Ole Miss for sure in that aspect. And who knows? Maybe they don't have a good. I don't remember really how their punter was, but maybe he can't pin someone down late, or he doesn't have the confidence in doing that in the red zone. So, and maybe the kicker can't kick long field goals and isn't as accurate as we think they could be. So all of that has to play a factor into this. And, I trust Lane Kiffin to make the right decision. But I want to go to a game, and this might be my most interesting game and the one I'm looking forward to watching the most. And that's Tennessee at Missouri, kind of the battle for the second team in the East. And
hey, Tennessee's still in it.
if Ole Miss pulls off
and we lose to Tennessee, and Tennessee wins this week, they'll win.
If Ole Miss pulls off the inevitable after the Tennessee Missouri game and Tennessee wins this game, we're setting up for the SEC East showdown in Knoxville next week at Neyland Stadium. But this is a 1-point line right now towards Tennessee on the road against Missouri. Missouri is definitely in their backs are to the wall. Tennessee still has everything in front of them to play for. We know they're going to come out playing hard. And then, Missouri is going to have to fight, obviously, after having a tough loss last week in Georgia. But I really want to see how the Tennessee defense plays against this Missouri offense. I think that's where this game is going to be won for either team. Obviously, we know how good Missouri is through the air, but we also know how good Tennessee's been stopping the ground game and kind of combating the air this season. They played all right games against pretty good quarterbacks this year, including Jalen Milroe. He didn't have the best game against Tennessee through the air. Kind of lit him up in the second half, but whatever they did to Jalen Milroe in the first half, they need to somehow find how to do that to Brady Cook throughout the whole game. And obviously Georgia kind of gave them a blueprint to success with Luther Burden last week. I mean, however Kamari Lassiter played him is how Tennessee is going to guard or attempt to guard him. So Theo Weiss and other guys like that need to get involved for Missouri, including Cody Schrader. He's got to have a big game. Brady Cook's got to be smart. It is at home for Missouri, so that does give them a little bit of an edge there, rather being in Neyland, obviously one of the toughest places to play in college football. But I really am interested to see how Tennessee attacks Missouri. Obviously, Eli Drinkwitz kind of in uncharted territory for him, a team that, he's 7-2 this year, or excuse me, 6-2 this year. So having a great season. Usually he's not used to being in positions like this. And, Josh Heupel was in this position last year where they kind of still had everything out in front of them at this point. So Josh Heupel is a more experienced coach in a situation like this. And I wonder if that kind of plays into your thinking as it does mine. But Jake, you know what? I just thought back against the wall, I got to take the Missouri Tigers here. I think they're going to find ways to exploit this Tennessee secondary, and Brady Cook's going to have a monster game. Theo Weiss is going to have a good game. I think Luther Burden maybe breaks one off or two, and maybe even Cody Schrader gets involved in the passing game. I think that's something to look out for. But I'm going to go Missouri to win and cover, obviously, the 1 point at home. I think they're going to find a way to respond after a tough loss to Georgia. And, a lot of people saying before the year, this was kind of Eli Drinkwitz coaching for his job this season. I think he's proved to everyone that he deserves to stay in the SEC at Missouri and maybe even get a better job if he can one day. But, yeah, I'm going to take Missouri to win.
Yeah. I've said it. I think this Missouri team is a top 10 team, especially after they found their confidence last week against Georgia. If they sustain it, who knows about that? But I think they have it right now. And so their offense, they're going to get theirs. Cody Schrader, Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, Brady Cook, they're going to be good. This Tennessee defense is better than it was to be expected. But, they're not Georgia. They're not Bama. They're not Ohio State. You can still move the ball pretty easily against them. And I think Brady Cook, being a top 3 quarterback in the SEC, he's going to be able to do that, especially with those weapons around him. So I think Missouri scores 35 easily. But I think this game is going to be won by Missouri's defense. Like I said, I think they have newfound confidence, and they've been playing they played against Georgia how they were supposed to play at the beginning of the year, with 2 really good cornerbacks, a potential first-round pick on that D-line next year. Tyron Hopper, transfer from Florida 2 years ago, playing really well at linebacker. I mean, they have a lot of pieces there on defense, and it looks like they're starting to mesh well together starting last week. And so I think they're going to continue that. Joe Milton, he's been playing better lately than he was in the beginning of the year, but it's still just not up to par, not what people thought it was going to be. I think he's going to dip down below to what he was before that first half of the Bama game. This Missouri defense is really good. And I think, I don't think they take last week as a win, because that would be kind of sad if they just take an L as a moral victory. But they're going to build upon that. And they think their team is better than, their record says they are. They're a 7-2 team, but I feel like they think they should be 8-1. Because that game, when they played LSU was really close. And I think if they replay it now, I would have Missouri winning that game. So I think Missouri's going to play with a lot of confidence. I think Missouri's going to go out and get this win. They're easily going to cover, probably win by 7. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're both kind of in the same mind. We both predicted both our first 2 games the same way. But let's head over to Lexington, Kentucky, another SEC East team hosting Alabama Crimson Tide this week. The same spread for this game as Georgia Ole Miss, 10.5 to Alabama. Obviously, it's on the road, and I think the bettors in Vegas think a lot higher of Kentucky than the AP poll and the college football playoff does. I have Kentucky in my top 25. I think you do as well. So we think a little bit. I think a lot better about Kentucky than most people do. Respect their run game, respect their offensive line. Obviously, Mark Stoops, a guy, one of the most underrated coaches in college football. What he's been able to do in his career at Kentucky. It's obviously a school known for his basketball program, but he's really revitalized that football program. And I think during the NIL and transfer portal era, he'll have much success. I mean, you've seen a lot of different guys use the transfer portal to go to Kentucky and play there. Will Levis is one of them. Devin Leary, although it hasn't really worked out as much as Kentucky fans and Mark Stoops probably would have wanted. I mean, it's starting to be a good destination in the transfer portal. And Devin Leary actually is playing his best ball of the season right now. So that does present a problem to Alabama that maybe Kentucky a few weeks ago didn't. So I think the main thing for Alabama in this game is to just continue to build. Obviously, offensively, had the best most complete performance last week offensively against a bad LSU defense. This Kentucky defense is a little bit better than the Ole Miss defense, or excuse me, the LSU defense. So I expect Jalen Milroe to keep continuing on what he's been doing. I don't expect him to run the ball 20 times in this game. Neither do I hope he runs the ball 20 times in this game. Talked about on last show. I don't think that's very sustainable. I want to continue to see him open it up with his arm. Hopefully have a couple of big plays like we've been having earlier on in the season that LSU took away last week. Maybe Kentucky will come up, bring some safeties up, and respect Milroe's arm, and then Alabama just has to go win one-on-ones. I think this is a game Jermaine Burton can really take over in. We haven't really seen him much since the A&M game. He's kind of been more of a decoy than anything, but I think he could, break away in this game and make some plays. And obviously, I want to continue seeing the nice, unique packages on offense. The Debo package with Kendrick Law, we talked about that a little bit. And I like seeing Jam Miller back there. So I want to keep seeing Jam Miller get some touches, maybe even Justice Haynes in this game. He hasn't played much in prime time this year. So we'll see what happens with him. And then obviously we've got some players out. Deontay Lawson will not play in this game. So Tresman Marshall will start at the Mike linebacker spot alongside Jahad Campbell at the will. And then Jalen Key, the starting strong safety, is not going to play in this game either. Or excuse me, free safety. He's not going to play in this game either. So I think what's going to happen is they're going to move Malachi Moore back to safety in this game, and they're going to play Terrion Arnold in the star. And that means Trey Amos will go play outside defensive back. So a little bit of shakeup in the secondary there with Amos coming on and Terrion and Malachi playing different positions. But another thing I wanted to talk about just real quickly, Ja'Cory Brooks is listed as out for this game. And I really don't know why, because dude hasn't really played much all year. I mean, coming into the season, I thought he was going to be our most reliable receiver, and he has been anything but that. I mean, I think he has less than like 5 catches on the season, which is insane. Talking about a guy who his freshman year pretty much took Alabama to overtime against Auburn. One of the best catches and memories I have as a student here at Alabama was that catch to take us end up being 4 overtimes and winning at Auburn. Just been really remarkable to see how far down he's gone. And it's just crazy to think that he really has been a non-factor in this offense this year. If you would have told me that at the beginning of the year, I would have said you were crazy. But I do think this line is isn't enough for Alabama. I think Alabama wins and covers relatively easy in this game. I don't think Kentucky's offense is going to really find ways to score. Alabama's secondary has been really locked down since the Texas game this year. Kentucky doesn't really have the athletes, I think, on the outside to challenge Alabama's defensive backs. Obviously, we've talked about how good Ray Davis has played this year, but Alabama's front 7 has stopped the run in every game they play. We're top 5 in run stopping on defense in college football. So I don't see him being a factor either. So Devin Leary, the way I think I can see a Kentucky upset in this game is Devin Leary having obviously his best game of his career and then some. He's going to have to not only make a bunch of plays with his arm, but he's also going to have to make a lot of plays with his legs. And I just don't know if he has the talent around him to do it. So I'm going to go Alabama to win, Alabama to cover relatively easy in Lexington. Should get in, get out, have a cupcake week next week, and then a big show at Auburn the following week.
Yeah, I think this line is kind of perfect though. Alabama coming off a huge win against LSU, preparing huge for that game. I think Kentucky might catch them sleepwalking. Do I think an upset's going to happen? Not even close to it. But I think this line is kind of perfect where I think it's going to be a 10, 13, 14 point victory. Ultimately, I'm going to go Kentucky to cover. I think it's going to be, this Bama team, it's no secret. They're a second half team. I think, again, this game might be 3 points tied at halftime. Kentucky's going to come out with a lot of life. I think they're going to believe that they can upset Bama, especially since they're not playing in Bryant Denny. And so you said it. I think Devin Leary, he's going to have maybe not the game of his career, but he's going to have a really good game. Because if he has the game of his career, it might be an upset, and I don't think it will be. But he's going to have a really good game. Bama and Georgia, they always get everyone's best. So I think he's going to have a great game. Ray Davis, if he's a factor in this game, that might be troublesome, but I don't think he will be. He wasn't able to run against Georgia. He probably won't be able to run against Bama. But I mean, this game, I think it's going to be kind of boring to watch, frankly. I think this Kentucky defense is going to play decent. And like I said, I think Bama's just kind of going to sleepwalk through this week because it's teams like this won't beat Bama, where you're heavily reliant on the run, and you're very unmatched. Whereas, if they were, had the athletes such as Michigan, I think they could compete. But they just don't. They're a very similar team to Alabama, and since they're unmatched at every single position, they won't have a chance. But I do think that line's pretty even. Actually, I'm gonna go Bama to cover. I think it's gonna be by 13. I'm changing my pick. I think Bama's gonna win by like 13. So it'll be a pretty close game, but Alabama's gonna get it done over with at the end.
Yeah, I'm going to say Alabama wins this game 37-17. I'm going to say a 20-point win on the road against Kentucky. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't think we'll sleepwalk, and I don't think we'll really start off bad either. I just think this is going to be a game we're in complete control of the whole time, and we just outmatch Kentucky in every facet of the game. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen at Kroger Field on Saturday. 12 o'clock kick. Kind of sucks.
I'm going to say 34-21.
Okay. I definitely think if Kentucky scores 20, that's a win for them. I mean, on offense against a really good Alabama defense. So we'll see what happens with that. But let's go to probably the second biggest game of the week in terms of
potentially the biggest.
Yeah, potentially the biggest in terms of magnitude. Michigan taking on Penn State. The number 3 ranked Wolverines are a 5-point favorite over Penn State in Happy Valley. The number 10 ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. I think kind of all of college football, Jake, is going for the Nittany Lions in this game. They all want to see Michigan lose and not have to be themselves outed by the college football playoff, but rather them lose and be just left out of it because of their play. And I actually think, Jake, and this is crazy coming from me because there he is.
I've
said this year that I have not been really impressed with Penn State's offense. And I've actually picked Michigan early on in the season to be in the college football playoff. But you know what? There's just something about this week that's different to me.
Yes,
I feel like Penn State is going to beat Michigan outright. They're going to cover the 5 points. They're going to win. And I think it's going to be because of Drew Aller and those 2 running backs that they've got over there with Allen and Singleton. Michigan hasn't played a team like Penn State at all season. And Penn State has played an Ohio State team and kind of hung in there with them for the most part of the game on the road. So Penn State obviously has the experience of getting hit in the mouth and then figuring out something to do and how to fix and how to respond to that. Michigan hasn't done that this year. They've won comfortably in every one of their games. But I think what I've taken away from their season is J.J. McCarthy hadn't had to do anything, and their run game hasn't been as good. And they don't have as many weapons out there as most people think, and they certainly don't as they did last year. I don't think Penn State does either. But I think Penn State has a little bit more talent on offense this year than Michigan does. And I think this might be a game where Drew Aller finally lives up to the hype of why he was so highly rated out of high school and why he wanted to go to Penn State and why James Franklin wanted to go out and get him. And personally, I don't think J.J. McCarthy is that great of a quarterback. I think he's fine. He's obviously one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten in really a bad conference for quarterbacks. There's not many great quarterbacks in that conference. I mean, you got Kyle McCord as a top 3 quarterback in the conference. It's pretty sad. So I think Drew Aller kind of cements himself as the best quarterback in the conference this upcoming weekend. I think Penn State is going to beat Michigan. I'm going to go 17 Penn State victory in Happy Valley. So obviously winning outright, they'll be covering the 5-point spread that is +5 towards them. So I don't know. I think this could shake up, and you've talked to one of my buddies, Craig. He's got a 3-way tie in the Big Ten East, so he's expecting Michigan to then go beat Ohio State. What a world we would be living in if that happened. If we did have a 3-way tie in the Big Ten East, Penn State would actually represent the Big Ten East in the Big Ten championship game. And then if Penn State goes 11-1 or 12-1 with a Big Ten championship victory, they're probably in the playoff. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, I'm going to go Penn State this week. I've just got a really good feeling about the way I think they're going to attack Michigan through the air with Drew Aller, and then they'll complement it with the run game. Again, like I said, Michigan hasn't faced a team like them all season, and I think that greatly benefits the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, you're exactly right. First of all, go Nittany Lions, second favorite team. Second or third. I don't know. Obviously,
2A, 2B. 2A, 2B.
Yeah. Oregon State and Penn State, 2A, 2. Actually, they're both 2A. 2A, 2A. I just can't pick.
I know what I'm going to get you for Christmas now. I got to get you a Beavers jacket.
Please do. Please do. But big Nittany Lions fan in this game. So you spoke about it. I mean, this Michigan schedule, it's been atrocious. They haven't faced a great team. And I know that's no fault their own. You know, they play in the worst or the best division, but the worst conference in football. No, ACC is worst. This is probably the second worst. You play Penn State and Ohio State, but outside of that, absolutely no one. And, Penn State, they've already faced their hard one in Ohio State. And what was the way that Ohio State won that game?
They won it through Marvin Harrison.
Maserati Marv. What is Roman Wilson going to do? What's a car brand that starts with an R? I don't know. Range Rover Roman. He won't be a factor in this game. So Blake Corum, he was already overrated. I've been saying he was
Roman.
Range Rover Roman. No, Blake Corum, he's a good running back, but it's just the day and age of the running backs. To be elite, you have to be the top 1%. I just don't think that's what Blake Corum is. I don't think he's going to be able to run over this Penn State defense. They were stout against Ohio State. They obviously don't have a weapon like Marvin Harrison. And that was the only way Ohio State won, because if you take Marvin Harrison out of that game, it's a toss-up. And I think Ohio State's defense is better than Michigan's defense. And Drew Aller is coming off his best game of the year against Maryland. He threw for about 250 with 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Had a great game. And I think he's going to continue that here. They get him at home, which is a big, big deal, because I went to the Whiteout last year. That's why I have all this stuff. And it was rocking. And it's especially going to be rocking against Michigan. So I'm with you. I'm glad you changed your pick. I have Penn State covering, and I have Penn State winning. It's -4.5, right?
5.
-5.5? Or
no, just 5. Just -5.
-5. Too many points. Give me Penn State. They're going to pull off the upset, and they're going to be 11-1 at the end of the season. And we'll see what happens. I said at the beginning of the year that Penn State was going to go 11-1. I did say with a win against Ohio State. But if they get this win against Michigan, I mean, they're not necessarily in the driver's seat, but if Michigan beats Ohio State, they're in the championship. So I'm excited to see it happen.
Do you remember those scooters that you had when you were a kid that you ride on? They're called Razor Blade scooters. Razor scooters. Razor Roman. We'll see how he plays.
Razor Roman. We'll see. That fits, because he's not a Maserati. He's a scooter. He's
still good. He's still a very good player.
He's had a good year, but to be a wide receiver one, nah. He'll
be going up against the best secondary in college football this week. And that's where I think at Michigan, and in the past, Michigan could have won games like this with their run game, and they still have Blake Corum and they still have Donovan Edwards. But this year, they have not been putting up the statistical numbers that they have in the past against inferior opponents as well. I mean, you got to think last year with everything in totality, they played TCU, and then they played Ohio State and Penn State, and they put up better numbers than they have so far this season. So I guess it has to do something with maybe play calling with O-line. Maybe it's all this distractions that Michigan has had over, kind of hanging over their heads. Obviously, it can't be good as a player. That they have to be paying attention to all this somewhat especially with their coach kind of, suspension in the air and all that good stuff. But
hey, that's a great point. Michigan doesn't have their signs this game, so
well, who's to say they don't? I mean, at this point, you never know.
yeah,
So, you got to go into every game thinking they do. So, and I've seen a lot of teams kind of figure out ways to combat that with like 4 different coordinators on the sideline with wearing 4 different shirts. Three of them are giving out dummy signals, and one of them is giving out the right signal. So maybe we'll start seeing that more in college football. Or how about this? How about a better idea? How about just put a mic in the quarterback's helmet so the coach can talk directly to him? That'll take care of all the sign stealing and all that. I'm a big proponent for that, but that's that we'll go down that rabbit hole some other day. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Michigan hasn't faced anyone like this all season, and I think Penn State's going to kind of show them that they belong in that conversation. Who's to say that the 3-way tie didn't happen, and then your Penn State Nittany Lions might just find themselves in the playoffs. So
they could.
Yeah, that's going to be an 11 o'clock game. It's a shame that's not a night game in Happy Valley or a whiteout or anything like that. But
yeah, speaking of night games, I want to transition to a game we'll just hit on real quick that I think could be an upset this week. Of course, we're going to Death Valley because they have another night game. I swear every home game they have, LSU, is a night game, and I have no clue how they do it. I don't know if they get priority.
It's priority. It's just nights in Death Valley is like their trademark. It's like their thing.
Oh, believe me, I know it's insane, but you got to share the love throughout the SEC.
Hey, you got one this week. You got one.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited, dude. It's gonna be right. This is the first time since 2019 we have a top 15 team, especially top 10. Since Notre Dame. So I expect the crowd to be similar to that. But let's go down to Death Valley. I won't hit on it too much. But this line is at 13.5. Graham Mertz having the most sneakily good season I've ever seen. He has almost 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions on the year. So, yeah, he's been a game manager, but he's doing everything they ask him to. I mean, he's been playing great lately. Didn't play that great.
More.
Yeah, outside of Georgia, I mean, he's been playing great. But the reason I believe this could be an upset is for 2 reasons. One, Florida's on wounded animal mode. They just got they didn't get destroyed, but they got embarrassed by a bad Arkansas team at the Swamp. For the first time ever, Arkansas beat them at the Swamp. A game you should not lose because Arkansas was up 14-0, I think 3 minutes in, maybe 4 minutes in.
Yeah, 3 minutes in.
Because of a strip fumble. He just took it from it and ran for a touchdown. And Florida brought it back. I think they were winning by a touchdown at one point, and then, they ended up going to OT and didn't get it done. But after that embarrassing loss, I mean, you want to avenge it some way. And what better way to go into Death Valley with potentially no Jaden Daniels? I don't know if he's playing or not. I know he was injured against Bama, and then I don't think he went on Monday in practice, but I think he's been there lately. But obviously, he's probably wearing the non-contact jersey. I know he's a QB, so he's already wearing that. But, they're definitely a little ginger with him. So, I mean, even if he does go, I don't think he's going to be his typical self. I think you're going to see what he was at the very end of the game in the fourth quarter after he took that hit from Dallas Turner. So running the ball might not be as effective as he's their leading rusher on the year. So I'm not going to call this an upset, but I think Florida covers this game. And this is a 1-possession game, and it's going to be a nail-biter.
Yeah, and from reports that I'm reading right now, Jaden Daniels hasn't taken any practice reps so far this week. Garrett Nussmeier has been with the ones all week. He's been seen on the sidelines in practice the last couple of days, but has not taken any reps. Obviously, Brian Kelly said if he can go, he will go. So it sounds like this is going to be a game time decision for Jaden Daniels. Obviously, I'm pretty sure he's probably prepping in the film room and getting stuff ready for this week like he is going to play. But who knows? He may not play. Maybe Nussmeier gets an opportunity for his first start at LSU, kind of a preview of what we'll see next season against a pretty good, I mean, not an awful Florida team. They're not great by any means. I think they're probably just an average team at best. But yeah, is Graham Mertz, if Daniels isn't played, does Graham Mertz become the best quarterback on the field in this game? I don't know. He might be. I know Nussmeier has a lot of talent. He's probably going to be a really good player for them, especially next season with Daniels gone after this year. But how does LSU respond after getting kicked in the mouth last week by Alabama is kind of what I want to see, especially if Jaden Daniels isn't playing. Now they kind of have really nothing to play for. Obviously, they have something to play for. everyone always has something to play for in a college football season, but they're not playing for an SEC title anymore, for a West title. They're not playing for playoff implications. They have 3 losses now. So I really want to see how their players, especially their star players like Malik Neighbors, who knows he's going to be a first-round draft pick this year. But how does he kind of continue playing this year? I'm not questioning his competitiveness or anything like that, but it's always something you got to think of when you're thinking of teams that are out of the picture now. I think they will respond well. I think they win. I think they cover against Florida, regardless of Daniels plays or not. I have a lot of confidence in Garrett Nussmeier. And actually, last year when he played against Georgia in the SEC championship game, I thought he handled that situation really well. And actually, he played better, in my opinion, than Jane Daniels did in that game. Obviously, it was a little bit not mop-up duty or cleanup time, but the game was still – obviously, Georgia had the game pretty much won, all but won. But Georgia's still playing once, and he was in there making some pretty nice throws, taking LSU up and down the field. So I liked what I saw from him last year. I didn't think he played bad when he came again against Alabama. Obviously, a tough time to kind of get in the game with 10 minutes left, down 14 in Tuscaloosa, a tough place to play. But with the home crowd against a Florida team that's just average, I think LSU will show why they're one of the better a top 25 team in college football and why Florida isn't. I think this LSU offense still is one of the best offenses in the country, even with Nussmeier quarterbacking. They just got so much talent on that team, on that offense. And I think the defense maybe plays a little bit better than expected. Kind of the same game plan for Florida against they had played Alabama. But we all know that Graham Mertz isn't going to run like Jalen Milroe ran, so they won't have to worry about that as much. But just keep the ball in front of them. Don't let it get past them. Don't let these drives end in touchdowns. A field goal is a win for them. I think that is what's going to happen this week. So I do think LSU wins, and I think LSU covers. But you're right; it is a sneaky spot for an upset.
Yeah, and so we got. I don't know how many games you want to preview left, but we got 2 big ones in the Pac-12. That's really it for me. First one, Utah-Washington. Washington's favored by 9.5 points. They haven't faced a defense like this year. I think this is the best defense in the Pac-12. Oregon's really close, but this Utah defense is really physical. I won't spend too long on it. Obviously, Washington, great offense, went off against USC last week. Michael Penix didn't have his best day, but Dylan Johnson came in and, finished the deal. I think this game's going to be really close throughout the whole game, but I think Washington's going to get it done at the end. I do think Utah's going to cover this game. I think it's going to be a 7-point win for Washington, maybe 6-8 points, somewhere along those lines. But I don't think it's a 10-point game or anything more than that. Utah's going to hang in there. Luckily for Washington, they get home field advantage. So I don't think they're even on upset alert. I just think this is going to be a hard-fought game, and Utah's not going to give them an inch.
See, I really disagree. I think this is going to be exactly how the Oregon-Utah game went down. And that game was played in Salt Lake City. This is going to be played in Seattle. And I actually think Washington is going to win this game pretty convincingly. Kind of just like Oregon did. I think Washington and Oregon to me are similar teams. I do think Oregon's a better team, even though Washington won head-to-head. Washington did get the game at home. I think if that game was played on neutral field, Oregon would win slightly, maybe by 3. Kind of like I think Washington did win by 3. So, and I think Oregon's probably a 3 to 6 points better than Washington is if played on a neutral field. So I'm going to go – I think this game will play kind of exactly like that game did. I think Washington's defense is a lot better than people think they are. Obviously, Utah struggled a lot on offense this year, especially with Barnes playing against a really good defense and that has a really good offense. So I don't think Utah scores more than 14 in this game. And I think Washington on offense obviously is a lot better, is really good. And I think they score over 30. So I'm going to go Washington to win and Washington to cover pretty easily. You're probably going to see this in my best bets as well. You actually will see this as a little preview. I've got Washington covering in my best bets. I was dead on the money when I said Oregon, Utah, and exactly how that was going to play out. And I think I'm going to be dead on the money this time, hopefully. Need to be a little bit more humble, but I don't know. I just feel like both Washington and Oregon are very similar in that matter. And obviously this game being played in Seattle even just helps my case a little bit more, in my opinion. So I'm going to go Washington to win, Washington to cover.
See, the reason I'm not so sure is because I think Oregon and Utah are very, very similar teams. And when you have the weapons that Oregon has, and you go up a worse version of yourself, you're going to destroy them. So Washington is basically playing a worse version of Oregon. And I think their physicality is what's going to hurt them because that's what was hurting. I know Washington got the win, but that physicality hurt them. It was a tough fought win. I think it's going to be similar, but again, Oregon, Utah, two very similar teams. But you don't have the weapons that Oregon has. So I don't think they're going to be able to do the things. But speaking of Oregon, they play USC in a pretty big game. USC is not ranked anymore, but they're still a good team. They have a really good offense, but that defense potentially worse than Power Five. They're so bad. I think Oregon's just going to score at will. It is a lot of points. It's 15 points. I think USC covers because I think this is a 14-point win for Oregon. But I mean, dude, USC's defense is so bad. It is atrocious. They're not going to be able to stop them. But I think their offense is good enough to keep them in this game at least for 3 quarters and then go win it in the fourth for Oregon. Bo Nix, again, has been really, really good this year. Over 2,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And that rushing game by Bucky Irving, he's been really good. So they're going to be able to continue that this whole game. They're just going to be feasting. And what's the over-under on this game? 73.5. Again, slam the over.
Well, I actually agree with you. I think Oregon's going to win. USC is going to cover. And I think that mainly because I feel like I really want to see how this USC defense, like you said, who's been absolutely horrible this year, responds after their defensive coordinator was fired. I want to see how the interim defensive coordinator kind of attacks the Oregon offense on defensively. I'm like I said, though, I don't know there's much you can do. But I do think this defense will play a little bit harder for their interim defensive coordinator. And I probably should have looked at I don't even know what his name is, but I do think they'll respond a lot better than they have in previous losses. Obviously, it you could tell it meant a lot to Caleb Williams last week when they lost an emotional game like that against Washington, going out into the stands, crying with his mom. You got to remember, I mean, this is still something that these guys pour their hearts and souls into. And I think you'll see that, a very inspired effort from USC this upcoming weekend. But again, the best teams always find ways to win in the end. And I think Oregon's one of the best teams in college football, one of the most complete teams. Their defense is really good, but they're going to have some struggles this weekend against USC. So I do think USC covers as well, but I think Oregon ends up winning it outright. This will be a closer game than the experts think, in my opinion. But again, a very good effort from the USC offense that I see coming up. I think the defense will get a few stops, and that kind of keeps the scoring a little bit lower than it has been in the past. But yeah, Bo Nix having a great season, and Bucky Irving, I mean, he's kind of the X factor for me on that Oregon offense. I mean, he's just been able to do it all for him this year, running and receiving. So I really like that matchup there, and I think he might be in the difference in this game. But one more game before we get to the uh-ohs I want to talk about just very briefly. One of the last remaining tests for Florida State on their schedule, they host Miami this weekend. Florida State's a 14-point favorite. Miami's been a team that has just been up and down, lost a couple games in just stupid ways. And then last week, just turned the ball. Tyler Van Dyke just threw 3 or 4 interceptions and just continued to turn the ball over. Does Miami have a realistic chance at winning this game? I think they do. I don't think they will. I do think they kind of give Florida State a battle in the first half, maybe even into the third quarter. But I think Florida State will separate themselves in the fourth quarter. We know they're a better team. I still am not the highest on Florida State, but there's just no competition in the ACC this year. Even Louisville, who's the second best team in the ACC, I think there's a huge gap between them and Florida State. I just think the talent in that conference is just so down from years past. Obviously, with Clemson being at the top, it's weird not seeing them there anymore, but we know what they've been this year. So I think Florida State kind of cruises into the ACC championship game and cruises to the playoff, mainly because they haven't played anyone. I mean, their best win this year is LSU, and that was week 1, a non-ACC opponent. So who knows? Maybe Florida can give them a battle the last game of the regular season. I doubt it. But, yeah, I think Florida State will win. I do think Florida State – I'm going to go Miami to cover. I do think Florida State will pull away in the fourth quarter and win this game and maybe be in the lead comfortably all game, but just Miami kind of sticks around. I think Tyler Van Dyke's a good quarterback. I think that was an outlier last week with him throwing all those interceptions, but we'll see. That's really all I got to say about Florida State. We probably won't even preview another game for them the rest of the season until they get to the ACC championship. So,
yeah, I think we'll do Florida State because that's always a big rivalry. But Miami, don't understand it. Don't know why people think they're good. They're not a good team. 2-3 in the ACC. And the ACC is hot garbage. I do think just by the nature of college football this year and by the nature of Florida State's roster, I think it's going to be close through the first half. But, kind of like the Pitt game last week. I think Florida State's going to pull away with it, and they're going to cover the 14 points. Miami, they're just A&M, except worse. Because Miami A&M beats the teams they're supposed to. Not last year, but A&M typically beats the teams they're supposed to. They just can never beat anyone better than them. Miami's the exact same way. They can never beat anyone better than them, and they lose a lot of games they shouldn't lose. So just don't know why they're overrated. Also, did you see Iowa's in the top 25 this? I think they're 22.
They're 20. They're like 24, I think.
God, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Anyway.
the Big Ten is bad. Like if it wasn't for Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan being as good as they are, the rest of the Big Ten, if you just exclude those three teams, like if you took the three best teams from each conference out of their respective leagues, the Big Ten's probably the worst. I think a lot of the ACC teams that would match up like 4 versus 4, 5 versus 5, ACC versus Big Ten, I'd probably lean ACC a lot of those games. So obviously the Big Ten has those top dogs that the ACC doesn't have, but the ACC is probably a more quality conference from top to bottom than the Big Ten is. I mean, the Big Ten West is laughable. I mean, it's really bad. The 4 best teams in the Big Ten all reside in the Big Ten East. The 4th best team being Rutgers. So,
yeah, no, you're right about that one. Yeah. So now that we're done with our preview section, let's go on to our teams. And I'm going to start it with my most disappointing one, America. Air Force, they were undefeated going into this game. They were 8-0. They were ranked in the college football playoff top 25. They were supposed to win. What was the line? It was a lot. It was 10.5 points.
Yeah, my over-under did hit, though. 31.5 was under.
Oh, it was 17.5 point favorites. That is crazy.
Wow. And they lost by 20.
Yeah, and they lost by 20. I mean, no one really expected anything from them, but they had a super easy schedule. They have Hawaii, UNLV, and Boise State left to play. And they beat Wyoming, which is, one of the best group of 5 teams this year, which is extremely surprising. They also beat Navy and Colorado State. So 3 games that you potentially could have lost. They won all 3 of them. Going into this game, people thought they were going to win. They had a clear path to getting destroyed in a New Year's Six Bowl, and they didn't. So, I mean, they can still finish the year 11-1, but I mean, what does that really mean? It doesn't mean anything for them. It's just so unfortunate. They were so close. I mean, I would have loved to see an Air Force, I don't know, Louisville in a New Year's Six Bowl. That would have been so funny to watch. And what if Air Force wins that game? Now they ruined our chances to watch them. So, I mean, it sucks for Air Force. They gave it their all. Army's a tough win always. Those armed I couldn't think of the word, armed forces. It's always tough, no matter who's good, no matter who's bad. It's always tough.
Obviously a tough loss, but I don't think they should hang their head about it. If they end up going 11-1 or 10-2, that's amazing for a team that runs a triple option. But yeah, I was thinking about it when you were talking about a New Year's Six game. How weird would it have looked to see a triple option offense on a New Year's Six game? That would have been wild. And honestly, teams don't play that a lot. They could have. What if they would have won a New Year's Six game? Air Force Academy. I mean, how cool would that have been?
I probably would have been the first time a triple option team has played in a New Year's Six Bowl since Georgia Tech used to do it.
Yeah, Paul Johnson. And even before that, Georgia Southern back in the day when they were really good, they may have played in one as that team, as a non-Power 5 team. So I don't know. We'd have to actually do some research on that one. But I think everyone in the country was pulling for Air Force. So sad to see. But my number 1 team on this week is Oklahoma. Man, I had this team ranked as my number 4 team just 2 weeks ago, and how the mighty have fallen. I mean, I didn't
know they were your number 4 team.
Yeah, they were number 4 at once, and how the mighty have fallen. I mean, losing to Kansas on the road in Lawrence, tough game for them. Got outplayed, and they got outplayed again last week in Bedlam by their big rival Oklahoma State. So they're done for the season in terms of playoff implications. They still have to have some stuff happen for them to play in the Big 12 championship game. Obviously, this team's a lot better than they were last year, so you can take something. If you're Brent Venables, you can take that a little bit with you. You're building on every year. Their offenses look better this year. I think they still need to figure out better ways to run the football and spread that football out on offense, and obviously get some better receivers and more talent. But their defense has really been the area that I've seen the most growth in this season, especially with big Danny Stutzman up the middle. But they really, these last 2 games have just gotten bullied by teams that shouldn't be bullying them. So I think that kind of speaks to maybe I don't know, I wouldn't say the strength program, but what's going on with them. I don't understand why they're getting bullied by teams that are obviously less talented than they are and teams that have no business bullying them. So that's big time for me. I think Brent Venables is going to be a good head coach there, but I'm just very interested to see what's going to happen with him, especially as they make it the transition to the SEC next year. It is going to only be harder for them to win. And I wonder what that Oklahoma fan base thinks about that. And if they struggle their first year, what happens with Brent Venables? Do they try to move on from him? I mean, obviously their first game, Jake, as an SEC team, you know who they play?
Bama.
They host Alabama. So it can get off to a pretty rocky start there with an Alabama team that's probably going to be really good next season. So Oklahoma lands on number 1 for me. So we'll see what continues to happen for them this year. I don't expect them to lose again, but wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. I'll keep my last one short and sweet. I got LSU. They were potentially going to be the first ever 2-loss team in the playoff. I mean, they had a route. Not an easy route, but they had a route. If they won out, they beat Georgia in the SEC championship or Tennessee, however it goes. I mean, they have a shot being 11-2 SEC champs. And now you don't have that chance. And now Jaden Daniels might not play. You might get upset by Florida. You still have to play A&M. And, you know, if your season's already pretty much over with and what would that be? They're 6-4. If you're 6-5 going into the very last game, you might end the season 6-6. Sorry, no, they have a cupcake before they play.
They have a cupcake. Yeah, they could be going.
You could potentially finish this year 7-5 when you were supposed to be a unanimous top 10 team. So it just sucks for them. It's important that they still keep momentum because you can still finish the season 9-3.
Well, Brian Kelly definitely knows what side of the ball he's got to work on getting some players on this upcoming offseason, via transfer portal, via the high school ranks. He knows it's no surprise. But my last team on the and I've had this team on here last week, UCLA. I mean, just quarterback troubles has been the key to their season. They haven't been able to find a guy, whether that be Dante Moore, Ethan Garbers. Like I said last week, I think they just need to ride with Dante Moore, the more talented guy, to finish this year, get some experience under their belt, and start playing towards next year. Because obviously, I thought they could be a really good player in the Pac-12 this year with a really good defense that they've had, but just not enough on offense, especially from that quarterback position. So kind of disappointing for them, but this will be the last week they land on the list. They're going to be kind of off the radar from here on out.
Yeah. Let's head into our last section, the best bet section. I got 6. I think you got 6. I'll go ahead.
With lock of the week.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start it off. My lock of the week, Tennessee at Missouri. Missouri is +1. I think Missouri is a really, really good team, and I think they get it done.
Yeah, I'm obviously going to hit that with you as well. I think Missouri is going to win that game. We talked about this already. So my lock of the week is Alabama covering the 10.5 versus Kentucky. I think that's, like I said when we previewed this game, I think that's easily going to hit. I don't think Alabama is going to sleepwalk in this game like you do. So I am going to go Alabama to cover 10.5, my lock of the week.
I mean, I think they do sleepwalk, but I think they cover that. So my other one, I'll save that one for last. That one's funny. USC at Oregon. I think USC +15 is the best bet. I just think that's kind of going to be, a shootout. And I think Oregon's going to be in control the whole game, but USC is going to be, kind of right up in there. And I think you kind of nailed it. It's going to be high scoring, but I mean, I think they're going to have a little bit to fight for with Alex Grinch just getting fired.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think USC is I wouldn't put this on my best bets because who knows, but I think USC will cover the spread. And then obviously I already gave you a preview for one of my best bets for games. I said Washington was going to cover the 9.5 at home against Utah. If I wasn't so confident about Alabama, I probably would have put this as my best bet. But I just feel like they're very similar. Washington and Oregon are very similar. And we saw what Oregon did to Utah, and Washington's at home while Oregon was on the road. So I think Washington's going to do pretty much the same thing that Oregon did. So I'm pretty confident in this one as well.
What was it? 9.5?
9.5.
Yeah. I think Utah covers, maybe not by much. But I think they do hang in there. So my third one, I'm going to keep it, with the same game, USC at Oregon, over 73.5. That is a lot of points but I think it's going to be a similar style game as Washington USC, and that hammered easily. So I'm hitting
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go over on that one as well. My last game bet that I actually have Mississippi State covering the 18.5 versus Texas A&M. We didn't talk about this game, and obviously I don't think Mississippi State scores more than 10 points in this game, but I just don't know where Texas A&M is going to be able to score more than 20 points and beat Mississippi State by more than 20. First off, their offense doesn't move down the field quick enough. And second off, Mississippi State is really good at sustaining drives, not finishing drives. So I think Mississippi State takes a lot of that TOP away from A&M in this game, and A&M can't score quick enough to win by 20.5 on offense. And Mississippi State's defense isn't awful. They're not great. They have a couple of playmakers on that defense. So I do think Mississippi State hangs in there and covers the 18.5 on the road against Texas A&M. We know Texas A&M is a lot better team at home than they are on the road, but for whatever, I just don't think that A&M's offense is sustainable and scoring a lot of points and beating a team pretty bad. Just the way they play offense and just the way they played it all year. So I do think this will be like my final score prediction for this game is like 17-3, or it's like 17-6, something like that, where a game A&M's in control of all game, but they just don't light up the scoreboard. So I'm going to go Mississippi State to cover 18.5.
Yeah, I don't like A&M, so I'm going to keep it at that too. Mississippi State plus 18.5. Like I said, they win the games they have to, but they don't win the big games, but they don't blow anyone out. They're not going to destroy Mississippi State. And I'm going to keep it in the Washington-Utah game. I know that was your best bet a little bit ago. I think Michael Penix 2.5 passing or rush touchdowns is a lock. So I'm going to go over on that.
Yeah, I'm going to hit over on that as well. And I'll keep it right there too. I've got 3 over-unders, and Utah versus Washington. The over-under is 52.5. I'm going to go under on this. I don't think Utah scores enough in this game. I think, like I said, I think Utah scores less than like 17 points in this game. And I think Washington only scores around like 30, 35. So I'm going to go just under the 52.5 in this game. Like I said, not very confident at all in that Utah offense. So.
Nah, I'm going to go over. I just think Washington's offense is really good. They could cover this themselves. Probably not. But I mean,
they almost last week they scored 52 against USC. So I don't think they can cover this on their own against Utah, but
that's just not a lot of points for this, high-powered Washington offense, in my opinion. So I'm going to go over. And then my last one, Malik Washington, the really, really good wide receiver out of Virginia, pretty much the only good player they have there. I'm going to take him 0.5 receiving touchdowns over against Louisville. I think he's going to be their only weapon, and he might get like 20 targets this game. One's going to be for a touchdown.
I'll go under just for the sake of disagreeing. Florida versus LSU. I've got the over-under in this game at 63.5. I'm going to go over. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game, obviously, with both defenses not being that great. Graham Mertz being a lot better than people anticipate. I think the Florida ground game gets involved in this game, and obviously the LSU passing attack is just insane. So I think 63.5 is a lot, but I think it's probably going to easily hit that over.
I actually think it's going to hit the under, because I think the way Florida tries to upset is kind of like what I said about Missouri against Georgia. They're going to have to eat up that TOP, and they're going to have to try to take the ball away from them and sustain drives. And especially against LSU's defense, you're going to be able to do that with ease. And so they're going to limit possessions, and especially without Jaden Daniels, potentially, I don't know how it's going to go.
Well, yeah, for this bet, it's just really just how you look at how each team is going to attack one another. And I think it's just going to be blow for blow. They're going to go after each other all game. So my last over-under, back to the Mississippi State Texas A&M game. I'll have a lot of games that overlap. The over-under is 43.5. I think this is definitely going to be under 43.5. Like I said, I don't think either team scores. I don't think A&M scores more than 24, and I don't think Mississippi State scores more than 10. So I think that's a pretty good solid bet that I liked. So we'll see what happens this weekend, but hopefully you'll get back on track with the best bets after a tough.
I still got one more.
You said that was your last one last time.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Anyway,
go ahead.
Anyway, yeah, I kind of stole what you did. I went for an over under, and I went with an absolute lock.
Hold up. Let me guess. This has something to do with Iowa.
Rutgers at Iowa. Can you guess the line?
I think I saw it, so I think I may have cheated, but it like 29.5, 31.5?
28.5.
Oh, it went down. Oh,
Hammer the under. Hammer it, hammer it, hammer it. They're never going to hit an over this season. I think they might be 0 for whatever it is. Because, dude, their offense is terrible. Their defense is good. Rutgers, I get they've been decent this year, but they're not good. So, look, this is going to be like a 20-point game.
You know what?
Don't say over. Don't say over.
I'm going to say I will win 17-14.
Bad take.
Over.
All right, you're going to see. Over. You're going to see what happens.
I trust you, Deacon Hill. I trust you, Brian Ferentz. Don't let me
counting this game. I'm counting for 2. So if you get it wrong, you lose 2. I'm counting it.
Okay. Well, if I get it right, then I get +4 because I'm putting a lot on the line there. But it's time for you to get back on track in best bets. Maybe you will after a bad week last week.
Hey, I had one bad week.
You went off track. You got to get back on it. And I've stayed hot, so maybe I can continue that streak going. But yeah, big weekend in college football. Obviously, huge game in Athens, huge game in Happy Valley. Not so big of a game in Lexington, but who knows what could happen? Maybe Kentucky shocks us all. So I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. A lot of football to watch. Make sure you get on your couch and take it all in because football season is coming to a close, sadly, especially the regular season.
Don't say
it's just gone by so quick. This is episode 25 for us. So y'all make sure to listen to this, to watch it on YouTube, listen on podcasts, tell your friends about it. Subscribe, comment, like, do whatever you need to do. We appreciate it all. And again, hope you come back and join us for the review show. It'll be aired on Monday morning next week. But Jake will be in Athens at the game. I'll be back home watching all the games on TV. So we'll have boots on the ground in Athens. So we should have a pretty good review show headed your way, highlighted by that Ole Miss Georgia game. So with that being said, I know Jake's got something big he's got to say right here. So go ahead and get it out of the way.
Go Dogs, baby.
And who?
And go Nittany Lions.
There you go.
Hey, and go Beavers.
Yeah, and roll Tide. Who do they play this weekend?
I think they have a bye.
A bye this late in the season? Obviously, no one good. But
wait, does Auburn have a bye this week?
No, they play.
Arkansas.
Yeah, they play Arkansas on the road.
Who are my Beavers playing? Oh, my Beavers play Stanford. Easy win.
Go Beavs.
I'm going 3-0 this week. Come on.
Hey, we'll see. That'll be a good week for you. But with that being said, guys, thanks for watching. Roll Tide.
Go Dogs.